In our second major lecture, we try to look at qualitative data transcription and the use of softwares. In this particular section, we are going to look at how to process the qualitative data in terms of making sure that we know exactly what to do in order to get the data more formalized and managed. And so in this section, we are going to look at the processes of coding data. We are also going to look at how we can put the codes into thematic analysis and also categories. And once we are able to do this, then we can describe the concepts that we have generated. So we are going to look at coding and developing codes. Coding is a process, and as a process, we are looking at it in terms of how we can bring the various information that we have got from the field into a well classified mode so that each information can be represented. Coding, you should note, is only done after transcription has been done. When we talk of codes, a code is basically a means through which we can provide specific tags or specific numericals or figures to the various information that we have received from the field when we transcribe the data. Therefore, coding is a data reduction method. It means you are reducing your information into more specialized categories. So, as Strauss and Corbin, 2008, indicated, they say that coding involves interacting with data using techniques such as asking questions about the data, making comparisons between data, and at the same time seeing which data that you have received can be similar or otherwise. Therefore, in doing so, we are trying to derive concepts that will represent the information that you've got or the data that you've got from the field. So every researcher can do coding. But if you are doing coding, you have to know phrases that are occurring frequently. You can also look at words that are occurring frequently and at the same time sentences that repeat itself over and over. Sometimes there are certain information that are key and critical to individuals or groups or observations that we made. And as we do this, we try to make sure that these are categorized in such a way that they make meaning. Therefore, we look for interactions. These are things that occur between and among the information or data that we have received and from our respondents. In doing so, The first initial thing that is done is what is termed as open coding. And open coding talk about axial and selective coding. This is done sometimes as the research goes on in the field. In open coding, you must be able to scrutinize the field notes that you have collected from either your observation or from the focus group discussions, the interviews, as well as other documents. These must be critically be looked at, either line by line or word by word. This is necessary because the essence is that it is going to help us to produce concepts that fit the data and also open up the inquiry or the issues we are addressing. In such cases, we must be able to revise the information that we've received and also refine the concepts. When doing open coding, try to ask yourself these three pertinent questions. The first is that you must ask, what study are these data pertinent to? Then what category does this incident indicate? And finally, what is actually happening in the data? This means you are fully scrutinizing the data in order for you to come out with a document that looks at paragraphs, sentences, words, and phrases, so that you can, in one way or the other, know how these concepts are occurring from the data. Therefore, for coding, the key thing is to assign labels to the data. Sometimes the labels must be as many as possible so that it can differentiate one code from the other. Sometimes we may also use coloring to differentiate one code from the other. And as these differentials are done, they help us to develop themes that may emerge from the data that we have received from the field. Therefore, it is important to know that coding has two major purposes. The first is that it allows you, the researcher, to identify the range of issues raised in the data. And this will help you understand the meanings attached to the issues that the participants tended to provide. The second is that the codes are applied as topical markers to index your entire data set, so that as a researcher you can easily locate every phrase in the data where specific issues are discussed. Therefore, codes help us in the final analysis to retrieve the texts that we have developed from the transcript. And this will help us to group them according to thematic areas. As a means to understand coding in a very broad manner, Morris and Huberman have identified 3 types of codes, and these are very important. These are descriptive codes, in vivo codes, and inferential, or what we call pattern codes. Now let's look at them one after the other. Now when we talk of descriptive codes, we are talking about codes that require little or no inference beyond the piece of data itself. It means we are interested in getting the analysis that has been provided directly by the respondent or within the transcript. The in vivo data, as the term connotes, are used by the participants themselves in the data. So it tells us about assigning a label to a section of the data so that we can ensure that concepts remain as close as possible to the research participants' own words or the use of their own terms. So it means we are capturing exactly what the respondents told us or described for us. Then when we talk of the inferential, we are talking of codes that help us in order for us to summarize the segments of the data. And they really focus on the patterns that are established within the transcripts. So what are these patterns? So when we talk of pattern codes, they are the form of data that exists in the transcripts that pull together both smaller and meaningful units of expressions. Therefore, in looking at pattern codes, we have to ask ourselves what is going on in terms of the data. What are the people doing, or what are the actions being observed? And what are the main things that are being said by the respondents or participants? And what do these actions and statements make for general statements? So what structure can the context support in terms of the actions and statements that have been provided in relation to the inquiry or the research we are looking at? So it's a very broad area when we want to do coding. And once coding is properly done, then it means you can analyze your data in a more formalized way.